Thanks for joining me for another edition of Grew with Portia. I'm your host, Portia Booker, and yes, this is my real name. Grew with Portia targets those who are curious, eager, and hungry for new information that can aid in their personal and professional development. Malcolm X once said, "Education is the passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today." Never stop learning. Be a sponge for the rest of your life. Before I jump into my topic for today, I want to start off with a little history lesson. Thanks for joining me in the studio today, Mr. Kelton Latson, one of my high school friends and colleagues. How are you, Kelton?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
It's always a pleasure. You know, April is National Poetry Month, and National Poetry Month was inaugurated by the Academy of American Poets in April of 1996. Over the years, it has become the largest literary celebration in the world, with schools, publishers, libraries, booksellers, and poets celebrating poetry's vital place in our culture. Every year, there is an ample opportunity to immerse yourself in the best and latest poetry. Experiment and play with language and words, letting them trip off your tongue and through your mind, creating images of alliteration or motivate action. How do you celebrate Poetry Month, Kelton?
So, for Poetry Month, usually, all different types of ways I celebrate. I run a poetry club at CSU, and usually for Poetry Month, we have a bigger open mic poetry event in the Burton Hall Auditorium, and we'll bring either a poet who is on Def Poetry Jam or maybe a local poet come in to perform on a bigger stage that we can pretty much provide for not just our featured poet, but also for our guest poets who always come to our open mics, our monthly open mics. There's an opportunity for everybody to pretty much share their poems on a much, much, much bigger platform. That's kind of my way of giving back on our college campus during Poetry Month. I usually try to write more on my own personal side. This year, something that's new. I'm currently student teaching at a New Tech West High School, and for this coming April, I'll be able to take some of the students in my poetry class, my 7th period poetry class, and they'll be able to come down to Cleveland State University to perform their poems.
Wow!
In front of a couple of college students. So that's my new way of celebrating Poetry Month coming up.
That's amazing. Now, how many students are you teaching, Kelton?
Well, for the poetry class, it's about 17 of them.
Okay.
A mix of 9th grade, a little 10th grade, and I think I have one 11th grader.
Excellent. And so you have this poetry open mic at Cleveland State. Is this once a month?
Yes. So Speak Up Student Open Mic Poetry Slam. We have an open mic every first Friday of every month during the fall and spring semester in the Black Studies program, which is in the Burton Hall building at Cleveland State. We usually start from 6:30 and we end about 9:30.
Okay. Just in case if somebody, who's listening may be interested in coming, is this open to the public?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. All our events, any event by Speak Up is always free. It's always open to the public. I will say that, the majority of the people that do come to our open mics and poetry slam is usually people that's from that surrounding community.
Mm-hmm.
So, you come there every month, you guarantee you'll never see the same face, ever. You'll always see different faces. But that's kind of always been the beauty that I've always liked, being part of the Speak Up community.
That's amazing. I mean, because you get a flush of literally different ideas, different people's, emotions, kind of like where they're at a different point in their life. So I'm excited to really hear about your students who are going to come and, perform some of their poetry. Now, I'm sure, Kelton, you've had the opportunity to read some of their poems.
Oh, yeah. Oh, their poems have pretty much thrown me away. I want to say I was a little shocked. I guess I was shocked by some students didn't really know that they really had that ability in them to really be able to express themselves and be creative. But with a little encouragement and motivation, like these students have pretty much, like from the beginning of the class all the way up to right now, they pretty much just been blown out the water. Just recently, they just did their duo poems, got with a partner and made collaborative poems, and they killed it. So they've been doing an excellent job.
A duo poem. Now that's something that I've never done.
Oh yeah, I've never done that myself. I've never done any duo poem, group poem, but that right there is something we've been working on, and it pretty much teaches them how to, just be collaborative and work together. The school overall is a project-based school where it encourages students to work together in groups on projects. But this kind of right here kind of feeds into that agenda and that idea with poems. To be able to bounce ideas off of each other and share each other's creative intellect, and it came out as something very, very spectacular, and they all killed it.
That's amazing. Kelton, when you read some of their poems, kind of what are the themes that they have in their writing that you see?
I see things about love. I see things about dreams. A few poems are about the East Side. I have a few students who are coming from the East Side. They talked about the things that they see, things that kind of impact their community. I see things about wanting to graduate high school. A few students, they talk about trying to make it past the state testing
Oh,
and
yeah.
make it out of high school. So they definitely have a lot of things that's sitting on their minds heavily. Every time I see their books, that's kind of what they're touching on.
That's amazing. That's really cool considering that there's a wide range of things. It's not just high school students. We have to remember that they are people too, and
Right,
they're not just coming to class, doing homework, going home, maybe acting silly a little bit in the hallways. They have
right,
different experiences, and depending on where they live, who they live with, where they live, who they grow up with, so they have a wide range of experience, depending on how they were raised. But one of the things that, I find cool is you get to see kind of like what they're going through their writing. Do you ever
hmm
see like kind of yourself through them, kind of like back when we were in
Oh,
high school?
oh, most definitely. You see a lot of the same things, the way these students feel about certain things and their views on certain things is definitely it all there. It's like you get a flashback, and it's like, man, I remember I used to think that, and I used to, have this feeling and was going through this. You try to give them a little advice, and then like you step back, okay, I'm gonna let you figure this out. I'm gonna let you, like get this experience, and you come up with your own, idea and conclusion at the end of the day, just so you can have your own experience. But it definitely is like a mirror being held to you, and it lets you know that, like this is like, teenagers are starting to realize like what it means to be an adult and going through certain things and how you handle certain things, and things can either make you or break you, but either the way that they mold you into the person that you will later eventually become as you get older. So you definitely will see a lot of things that you yourself went through as a teenager when you read a lot of their works.
And see, that's why I love reading poetry from different people because
hmm
I get to kind of like get a sneak peek, kind of like when you're looking through a magnifying glass or when you're looking through like binoculars. You get to see somebody else's perspective through their writing.
Oh yeah, like we always talk about being able to step outside the box and like just get out of your own world, get out of your own box, and go see like other people's points of view on things, and that's how you pretty much gain wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not just you stuck in your own life or your own world all the time. It is you taking the things that and then you compare and contrast to what other people have gone through, what they've seen, and what they've done. And it just gives you a totally different, broader perspective on things. And, it just gives you that room for growth. And that's definitely what a lot of young poets, they definitely need to have. I think poetry gives you that access to do that, to be able to look at other people's experiences around the world and see the things that kind of shape them as a writer.
Absolutely. And, one thing that you really touched on was wisdom. And that's one of the things I gained a lot from reading different poems and writing my own. And when I look back on some of the poems that I wrote when I was in high school, I was somewhat before my time. People always tell me that I've been very wise since I was younger. But, when I look back on my poems today, now that I'm an adult, 10 years later, they speak to me differently than they did in high school. Not to say that words don't have meaning, but it's like when you're in high school, you're still kind of like trying to figure out the world. You don't have much experience, but then, you come back to something a couple years later, once you've kind of gotten some miles on the tires of your life, then it's like, oh my God, I can't believe I wrote this,
Yeah. I think I do that every once a blue moon. If I come across like some old poetry from maybe I'll say even 2010, or 2009, and I look at it, it's like, okay, like for a high schooler, this was pretty deep, for somebody that's 16 and 17 and 15, because when we were in school, like, teenagers not thinking about issues in the world and all that stuff, they worried about teenage stuff. And, I was always told that, you got an old soul, very wise for your age. There are a lot of students that I'm seeing now who are the same, they're into the old school music. And, their wisdom is just far beyond their peers, and it's like when I look back at the writing that I used to write, I think if I had the mindset that I have now, my poetry would have been a lot deeper, probably on a different scale. And like looking at the poems that I did then, it's like, that was okay. Like it ain't that deep, That's how I look at it now. Like maybe for a 16-year-old that's deep, but like me looking at it, it's like that's just a young kid, just writing in this book. He thought he knew what the world was, and maybe he later found out, the world is kind of like this because of this, or I wrote this because, it's really this going on. But yeah, you definitely look back at your old poem, and I guess you can see how much you actually progress. Over time, the more you keep writing, you actually get better. Like you get better, you channel, different styles, you switch up a little bit, you may try something new, you may stop a particular style that you tried and didn't work, but overall as a writer, you actually get better the more you keep writing over the years. It's like, you'll hear stories about writers who, they used to write in high school, but then they stopped. 30 years later, they want to write again, but they don't know how. And it's like, like you had that whole lapse in between, like you didn't continue. Like it's one of the things that you just constantly got to keep doing, like throughout the rest of your life.
Well, yeah, they say in order to be a good writer, you have to be a good reader. And also, you have to practice. You can't just, like you said, you excellent writer in high school and then you take a 15, 20-year break. I mean, what do you expect? You're going to have a lot of, brain farts, literally. You're like, where do I start? So I agree. Writing, you practice, you get better, and you read. Reading is not considered plagiarism or copying. It's more so like to see the different word structures.
Right.
So, Kelton, would you mind sharing one of your poems with our listeners today?
Oh, absolutely. This poem that I wrote is actually very much new. I wrote this poem about a few weeks back. I think I only shared it actually one time at an open mic. And it is about love. It's with a little different spin to it. Love moves no mountains. Love is no supreme. Love is not more constant than light. Love has no means. Love does not conquer all, only broken hearts and empty shells that used to be filled with feelings. They choose to love you until they choose you no more. Maybe love misrepresented itself on the Hollywood set. Love be at all the funerals, though. Maybe love only loves death. People don't love you because of what they feel. They only love you for the ideals. If they don't love you for who you really are, then they can't possibly love for real. Love was once the cure to hate, the cousin of peace, the road to happiness. What you thought love was a myth, a mannequin, in a storefront. Keep a little bit of love to yourself. These people, this world, will only leave it out for it to rot if you give it to them. Be your own savior. Love yourself first. Love the world later.
I'm going to snap my fingers because that's what we do, right? In poetry, we snap, not clap, even though some people still clap.
Yep.
Wow, Kelton. You know, the word love is just a very interesting word as it is because it's a universal word, but there's different meanings for it for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some people see love as, a physical thing, not so much as just like I'm saying I love you. Very, very interesting poem, Kelton. What made you write that?
For me, a couple people had some conversations in the past. We talked about, I think the debate at this time was love a choice? Like, can you control who you love, or can you just choose love? Like, can you just choose to love somebody? And, we got into like this whole debate of, well, if you could choose to love somebody, then it's like a light switch. Like, you turn it on and then you turn it off, and then you could easily turn it off. It's like, well, did you ever really love the person in the first place? And, just wondering, like, what is this thing that people say love? Because I guess my thing is that when people, they say love unconditionally, but then it's like you start wondering, does that even exist? Because it's
Right.
like, in order to love somebody, you feel like you have to meet this some type of condition in order to get that particular that love from them. But that's kind of some things I just been like just debating and playing around in my head, and just put it down on paper, and then it just came to be.
Kelton, for you, what is love?
I say still just trying to figure it out. I say you still trying to figure it out. You ask people what is love, you'll get like a billion different answers, and it's crazy that you'll get a billion answers and not even for sure any one of those answers are even right. That's the crazy part about it. So everybody has their own like idea or definition of what love is, and I think it's something that's actually still a mystery to a lot of people, like on exactly what it is, especially just for themselves. I think at first you just gotta learn to define it for yourself, and then take it from there. In the meantime, I think a lot of people are still trying to figure out what love is for themselves. So you throw me in that category.
Do you believe that in order to really love somebody, you need to love yourself?
Oh, well, there's some like back and forth with that. I would definitely say that you should always love yourself, because you don't know what love looks like if you never had love within yourself from the begin with. Nobody can love you if you don't even know how to love yourself. So that's definitely something that people will always say that you should start with. You love yourself first, then you'll know what to look for when it comes from wanting somebody to love you, and what to look for in a whether it's a friendship or a relationship. You should always start with the love you should have for yourself. And when you have that love for yourself, it also lets you know that, okay, I got this much respect for myself. I know my worth. I know my value. I know what I'm willing to put up with. I know what I'm not about to put up with. All of that comes from loving thyself. I say that there are some people who, are void of loving themselves, and that's because they never received it. So the thing is, well, how do you learn to love somebody or to love yourself if you never even experienced somebody showing you love, or you never seen somebody give love to somebody else? So it's one of those complicated things where, it's like over time in life, you're trying to figure certain things out and you're trying to figure out what is what, but trying to piece those puzzles together without actually seeing it, being put together. Like, this is how to do it. This is their instruction. This is what it should look like. This is not what it should look like. If you've never seen that, where do you start from? How do you know? So that's kind of my thing.
For me, the definition of love, I use the scenario between me and my mom. My mom
Okay.
was diagnosed with lung cancer in 2018, which, she's been cancer free a year, officially, a
Okay.
couple weeks ago. I told her one day, I said, Mommy, why didn't you want to tell me, about your illness? And, she kind of stayed quiet for a minute. And I said, well, Mommy, I said, I left everything behind for you. I left my career to come back home to you. I said, that's real love, Ma. I said,
Mhm.
if I didn't care, I would have stayed where I was, just continuing to live my life. So to me,
Mhm.
that's what real love is to make sacrifices for
Mhm.
somebody you care about unconditionally. You don't want anything in return. I just wanted to be closer to my mom because I didn't know, what stage her cancer was, and, if she would have very long to live, like what her treatment would be. So there was a whole slew of emotions going there for me, and I needed to be closer to her because she's always been in my corner my whole life.
Right. Oh
So
yeah, it's definitely. I definitely agree with the sacrifice. Like, if you're willing to take a huge sacrifice, that's definitely showing how much how much that person that you're doing that sacrifice for means to you. And, I definitely agree with that.
yeah, you want to make people happy, and I'm somebody who likes to make people happy and make them laugh. But, you only get one mother in this world. And,
Right.
like I said, my mom has always been in my corner. My mom's been my rock. She's amazing. She's the best person in this world for me. So
Oh,
I will do anything for my mom.
right.
So Kelton, what kind of got you started into poetry?
Oh, poetry. Me and a good friend of mine. We started off as we wanted to be rap artists, and what we used to do, we will look up like instrumentals, and we'll listen to the instrumentals, and we'll write our own songs, and that's kind of what our thing was. We just write songs, and then a friend of mine, he actually went to CCC with us as well. I think he was at maybe two classes above us,
Okay.
and he like entered the poetry slam. I think this had to be doing that in ninth grade year. And I've never heard of the poetry slam. This is my first time ever even seeing such a thing. And, he performed one of his poems, and that kind of like got me inspired. I'm thinking like, oh, a poem. Like, I thought, we just rap. That's all we do. We rap, we play the beat, we write our rhymes. What is this poem stuff that y'all keep talking about in poetry slams? But, listening to his poem and everybody else using the poetry slam poem, it kind of just got me going. Like, okay, like I think I want to try that. and being able to see the difference between, rap and poetry and the similarities, I'm like, oh, it's not really far off, just cut this music off and leave my verse there, oh, I got a poem, so that right there kind of got me not just doing rap songs, but then also I got into the habit of just writing little short poems during that time, and then from then it kind of just took its course where I would end up doing both.
That's great. I mean, you literally probably got fired up seeing him, performing whatever his poem was.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
Kelton, is there a difference between spoken word and rap?
Oh well, there is a difference, but the similarities are definitely huge, and I believe that they definitely outweigh the differences. The differences, obviously, spoken word, you don't have to rhyme. Most people do rhyme. It kind of adds to the performance of it. Obviously, in rap, you must rhyme in a rap. You got your beat. You got certain styles. You gotta have a certain type of swag to go with it. Your approach to the microphone as an MC. Spoken word. I think one of the main similarities it has is like you can read a rap lyric, but it's not gonna sound the same, or it's not gonna read the same unless you actually hear that artist perform that verse. And it's the same thing with spoken word. I say all the time, like spoken word poetry, like yeah, you can read it, but it's not gonna hit the same. It won't be
Mm-hmm.
the same. Like you gotta see that poet actually perform that poem, and then your whole point of view and perspective of that poem is gonna change. Because it's meant to be performed. So spoken word and rap, they definitely have similarities and differences, and the similarities definitely outweigh the differences. Definitely.
Well, and then too, you kind of hit on a strong point that spoken word doesn't have to rap versus when you're actually rhyming. I'm sorry, rap has to rhyme, but also
Mhm.
if you're just reading a poem that's supposed to be spoken, in a very animated or more dramatic way, it's not going to hit you the same because the
Mhm.
words are just on paper. They're not coming alive through somebody's actual vocals.
Right. And usually after you seen the spoken word performance a few times, and then you get the lyrics to it. Now, okay, I know how to read this. So I remember, I visually could see the poet in my head, and I could hear that poet, reciting this poem. But usually in the beginning, like you have to hear the poet first and watch how they perform it.
Mm-hmm.
How much emotion did they put into it? Like what do you remember about their body movement, their stage presence. Their voice started out real low, then it was a build up because then towards the end it got real more dramatic and powerful and intense. Those are all the good elements that you'll see like in the spoken word poem that kind of gives everybody a thrill when they go see it.
Yeah, it's all about the way you perform it. So Kelton,
Oh,
poetry has different styles, right? We kind of touched on that as far as like, rhyme, slant rhyme and prose. Do you have a specific style that mostly use in your poems?
oh yeah, you ever read a poem by me, you'll definitely see a lot of rhyme. It's kind of something that's just always been with me. It was always appealed to me, the ability to rhyme and pick up that rhythm and that flow throughout the whole like poem. I have over the years have ventured off into different styles, and I pretty much kind of there are some poems where I don't rhyme at all, and I really started to appreciate the beauty in poetry that just does not rhyme. And I think a lot of people kind of like the more I've gotten into it, I think a lot of people are really, really underestimating and underrating, the beauty of poems that are just like rhyme free. And I pretty much just go back and forth between rhyme, non-rhymes, and that's pretty much just been me as a writer. Just learning to be versatile in a lot of my different rhymes, or excuse me, a lot of different poems, and just knowing what poems you want to have that particular style, and how to decide that. But it definitely, it's been a mixture beforehand. Over the years. It's always been about rhyme, and that's just mainly because me as an artist, I started out as a hip hop artist, and that's kind of always just been what I've been known as, and it's kind of stuck with me. But I have taught myself and learned to appreciate, the various other styles and being able to dive into those different styles and pretty much present them in my work.
Absolutely. And, when it comes to rhyming, how do you feel about people who say rhyme is like kind of archaic? Like, I've met people who don't like rhyme and poetry. And I'm just thinking, but it makes all the difference, though. There's no like set structure.
Oh yeah. Rhyming. Like my students, like they like to rhyme, but the reason why most of them don't is just because it's hard. And
Yeah.
like the thing with rhyming, people don't realize how much skill it actually does take. When you get away from the Dr. Seuss type of rhyme styles, and you start getting into the heavier rhyme, like where you're using bigger words, and you got to really know your vocabulary. You got to really know, like what fits and what doesn't fit. Like rhyming is actually pretty hard to do when you really, really, really think about it. And I say this the same thing, like when people like are very critical of hip hop or rap, and they say, "Oh, that don't take much skill." And well, I don't know about that. Like, not everybody can rap. Like rapping and being able to put those words together. You have poets. You got your inline rhyme, your outline rhyme. They could rhyme in 3-4 words in the same sentence. Like that's definitely a true talent, man. That's not nothing that anybody can do. It's something that you got the talent to do. Hey, like you need to present that to the world. Like that's definitely a gift.
It is indeed a gift, and like you said, knowing your vocabulary. But then there's also slant rhyme. But the thing with slant rhyme is it doesn't always fit the same way as just regular rhyme.
Right. Yep.
I mean, because I've read some poetry where they'll start with regular rhyme, but then they go into like slant rhyme, then back into regular rhyme. And I'm like, this doesn't work too well.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, you see people that they try to test things out. They try to bend the envelope a little bit. Excuse me. Yeah, they try to like push the envelope a little bit. But that's kind of the beauty of it. You see what works, see what doesn't work, and but it's always important to try out every type of style to see what it is that you like the best. And
well, and
I think roll with it.
Well, and I think, Kelton, when it comes to rhyming and poetry, it makes it easier for memorization.
Oh yeah. See, memorizing. A lot of people don't realize, like when you talk about, it's hard to memorize your poem. If you put some rhymes in there, it makes it a lot easier. I remember the first poem I ever wrote that I memorized. What helped me memorize it was the rhyming. And I would just go like 2 lines, or those 2 lines rhyme, and then the 2 lines that follow those 2 lines, they rhyme. So I'm gonna just go 2 lines at a time. And then every day, eventually, I'll pick it up. And it's like, now I know this whole thing. And I always say, like, look, if you can remember your favorite artist's song lyrics, you can remember your own. All right, if you can remember theirs, sing their song so much, or you rap their song so much, or your favorite poet, you would read your poem or recite your poem all the time, very often. Do the same with your own work. Like read your poem as much as you read theirs, and guarantee you are going to memorize your stuff just like that. And it makes it easier if you do have it in those rhymes. And those rhymes pretty much are like a guide, like a guiding factor that helps you stay on point.
Well, yeah, and it's kind of like a beat in its own way. You remember when you're listening to a song, there's always that one little beat that you always remember, and you know when it's coming up.
Yeah.
That one little part that always gets you. So
Yeah.
I
If you
agree.
ever, and if you ever seen any poet, whenever they're performing and they mess up, they may pause and they'll say that one rhyming word again, and then they kind of, oh, okay, this will come next. Because it's that rhyming word. Like, what was the word that I used to rhyme with this last word? And then it comes back to your mind, then it gets you right back on track.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it, like you said, it does take skill and patience and really,
Hmm.
picking up on that vocabulary. So, Kelton, we're going to kind of switch, gears a little bit here. We live in an age of social media. Everything's out there on YouTube, Spotify, wherever. You can Google anything.
Hmm.
How do you think social media plays a role in poetry today?
It's a lot of, I say it's a lot of good. It gives people a platform. Recording, put your poems up there on Facebook and Instagram, get you a nice large following. YouTube, and I believe you get a large following on YouTube, you end up getting paid. Due to the fact you get a nice large following. It's another thing that people can use to take advantage of to pretty much get their materials and their work out there. There's been a lot of poets who've been getting booked or discovered, you know, because of social media, along with every other artist within the artist industry. So it's definitely a good thing. The one pet peeve that I have disliked about technology and poetry is, I'm very into, when you write your poems, we write in the book. The book just symbolizes so much to me. Like, it symbolizes, not only did you write your own, like, poem inside this notebook, like, and you're reading it, but, like, it's just something special about the fact that this poet has his own journal, all right, and they wrote it down and they're reciting it. Like, that's their book. I really kind of don't care for poets who read out of their phones. And I know that's one thing that a lot of people do. Like, they'll probably write a poem in the phone, and it's definitely like an easier thing. But it kind of shows that, like, man, notebooks are pretty much about to be thrown in the trash. Journals
Right.
thrown in the trash. Like, nobody is using journals anymore, or notebooks. And it's like, pull that out nowadays, everybody looking at you like, what? Like, what is this? And it's like, man, this is how we used to do it. Like, I used to sit down, pick up my pen and write. And now it's like you pick up your phone and you putting it in there. So that's kind of been something. I know most poetry places, I think some, like, poetry slams I've seen, they actually, like, either took points or disqualified you for reading off your phone. And they
Really?
kind of cause all these, oh yeah. I think, man, because it causes these distractions where, you could be in the slam and you're reading off your phone, but then, if you don't have too much contact with your phone, then you're reading, the light goes off, and then you got to hurry up and turn it back on, and then you got to find your place again and all that. And it's like, see, you could avoid all that. You had a notebook. You ain't got to go do all that. Oh, the light went off, and I got to turn it. I got to make sure my phone is fully charged, so when it's my turn to go up, my phone ain't on 5% while I'm in the middle of reading this poem that I wrote on here. So that's kind of the thing that, like, I was like, man, avoid that at all costs. But the one last thing I do like about technology with the poems is that you do have something that's currently in your mind and you don't get it down right away. You can voice record it. Like, voice
Mm-hmm.
record yourself saying this line, and then you come back to it later and, like, okay, I remember I said this. How can I piggyback off that? So whenever you have a good idea, just record on your phone, got it saved, and then later on, you're not trying to scramble like, dang, what did I think about earlier on? Like, yeah, it was in my mind, now I forgot it. So that's just kind of my thing with social media and poetry.
I agree. I'm old fashioned, Kelton. I'm somebody who keeps a notebook still and a pen in every
Oh
bag
yeah.
that I own because I can't, for some reason, I feel disconnected if I'm trying to type a poem or even write on a computer. It doesn't feel the same.
Oh yeah.
I
Yeah,
don't
not
get the
at all.
closeness at all versus, you buy a notebook from, a bookstore and it looks really cool and you're excited to just crack it open and start writing. It's like a little
Hmm.
keepsake.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. It definitely like it just it takes away the intimate of writing, the closeness to it, because it feel like I'm just texting something. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm just texting. They're like, no, I want to pick up my pen and I'm taking the time to like actually handwrite this stuff. Like typing it is nothing. Like I took the time to handwrite these thoughts, in this notebook that I keep forever, because phones don't last forever. When you get a new
Right.
phone, all your new stuff in your phone don't necessarily always transfer over when you get a new one. So it's like just avoid all of that. Get you a journal, a notebook. That's why the poetry class I have, I gave them all notebooks. Everybody got a notebook. And I don't want to see no phones, no tablets. Like put that in the notebook.
Yeah. I mean, notebook, it's tangible. When you're trying to write on a computer, you don't feel that same connection to me versus when you have a pen and a piece of paper in front of you. It's kind of like you in your
Oh
own little world versus when you're on a computer. If you're on Facebook, you're kind of getting distracted and you're pretty much exposed to the rest of the world versus just kind of in tune with yourself and your own thoughts.
oh yeah.
That's my thing with typing on the computer. Thank you again, Kelton, for being my guest. I always, like I said, enjoy having you whenever National Poetry Month rolls around because I've always admired your work. And you've also published a book. Can you tell our listeners about your book and maybe they can find it online?
Oh yeah. So the book Kel's Poetry Blues. You can find that on Amazon.com or any other online um, place where they sell anything, or Barnes and Noble or any other bookstore or bookshop. But Kel's Poetry Blues published that back in the beginning of 2013, and that's one of the first poetry books ever published. And Kel's Poetry Blues pretty much me. At the time I was at Kent State University, cooped up in the dorm room, and I just had all the time in the world to write all these poems. And at that time, I didn't know what I was going to do with them. And I figured, why don't I just make all of this big old complicated, a big old book, pretty much. And my inspiration behind it was Miles Davis. I was a big jazz listener. And Miles Davis has an album called Kind of Blue. And the
Hmm.
blue just representing all these different things, like, sadness, the blues, struggle, and, how do you get over that struggle. So Miles Davis this album Kind of Blue was my theme to that. And, I would write all these poems while listening to that album. And I figured, you know what? Like, this is going to be called Kel's Poetry Blues. So now I've got Kind of Blue, I got Kel's Poetry Blues, and all those thoughts and dreams and feelings that I had. I think I was maybe, 20, 21, 22 years old during that time. So these are all the thoughts coming from a 21, 22-year-old. And yeah, Kel's Poetry Blues has definitely been a book I've been grateful to been able to publish and put out there. And it was definitely like a dream come true to be able to self-publish and put my works out there. It was something I had wanted to do my senior year in high school, and be able to do that, that was definitely a true accomplishment.
I'm happy to hear that you were able to publish your first book and you self published it versus, like going through a publishing
Oh
company.
yeah, Oh yeah, yeah. I found out very quickly on my own about the whole, the pros and cons of, going to another company and you got your book agent and you're trying to pitch it and all the other stuff. The thing about that is like, you'll have a book agent. They'll see your manuscript. They'll look through it. They'll be like, this probably not gonna get accepted because it's not juicy enough, or it's not good enough, or whatnot. And it's like, man, I don't believe in letting other people tell you, your work is not worthy, or it's not valuable, or it's not good enough. And like that's let the people decide. Let the people who
Right.
really want to listen to my art decide that. Don't ever let none of these companies try to tell you who you are as a writer or define your work. Like I figure with self-publishing, your destiny is in your own hands. Like you can control all of that. So I went through a publishing company called Author's House, and it was about maybe a 4 to 5 month process, and it was pretty easy. Definitely the self publishing route is a way that I definitely encourage a lot of other people who would like to get their works out there. That's definitely the route that you want to go.
I hear that. Take matters into your own hands. Don't always go, I wouldn't say an easy route, but, like you said, they go through your manuscript, and if it's not something that's quote unquote in demand, or that they deem something that can collect the attention of millions of people, then they just kind of pitch it to the side.
Oh yeah.
How long
Oh
did it,
yeah.
how long did it take you to actually get the book published, Kelton?
Well, the different stages, the different stages, it didn't quite take long. You know, I think the first stage was, you know, you'll look through all the poems, make sure everything is like how you want it written. Make sure everything is like just how the way you want to be, font wise. And then you submit that part to them. You do pay, so they'll put you up on an installment payment. Once you make your first installment payment, then that first process goes through. Then they have the illustration. You got complete control on what you want as far as illustration. You can show them an idea of what it is that you want, or if you know somebody who does illustration work, or you do your own. You pretty much you can let them know that. Show them what you came up with, show them what the other persons came up with. You put that idea to them. You make that second installment, then that goes through. And the third, or the final last installment is pretty much all about the distribution and copyright and all that stuff. And then, so like a month gap in between that, and then eventually, they'll let you know, like, hey, this is what your book looks like. We'll send a copy to you, let us know if you approve it. You look through it, get a seal for it. You get the thumbs up or the thumbs down, and everything is cool. Eventually they'll tell you, like, the next month it's going to be published on this date, this time. And usually what they do is they'll send you a huge box of
Wow.
all your books. They'll send you a huge box about maybe, I say about like 1,000 copies of your books. They'll have like book markers and stuff like that to go with it. And what that is for you, gives you a chance to sell your books in person.
Mm-hmm.
So that way you're not waiting on, royalty checks. Because, royalty checks only come like, I guess like 4 quarters in that, something like that, every 4 or 5 months or so. So
Mm-hmm.
instead of waiting on a royalty check, you got books in your hand, you can sell them, and sell them for whatever, how much, $10, $12, $15, but you got 1,000 copies of your books, and you can pretty much sell all those books in person. So it gives you a chance to make some more money, as you also will be receiving royalty checks when your book is being bought and sold online. So,
That's amazing. I'm happy. You said this was Author's House that you used.
yep, off his house.
Okay. Excellent, excellent. Kelton, are you working on any other books right now, or this just kind of like the first for now?
Oh yeah, I've been working. I'm working on like two different things. The second book of poetry is actually finished. I've been in grad school, and thank goodness that I only got 2 more months left, and then everything can finally just die down. Grad school pretty much took my mind and ventured off and just solely focusing on school and working on becoming a teacher. And I haven't really been able to focus my mind on a lot of the creative things that I usually do outside of that. But my book of poetry, my second book of poetry, it is finished, it's complete. I just need to just touch up on a few things and just go back through that process again, see what I got to do. I've been working on a memoir. Now when it's going to be done, probably no time soon, but I have been working on the memoir. It's something that I really, really do look forward to when it is complete, and looking forward to getting that out there. I think it'll be something that definitely help inspire a lot of young youth who are growing up here in Cleveland, Ohio. Give them something to really look at positively, see that there are positive figures out here in the city that they can look up to and follow the footsteps in. So that's pretty much the two things I've been working on is, my second book of poetry and my memoir.
Excellent, Kelton. I look forward to those when they come out because I will definitely purchase a copy from you and read them because, like I said, I've always admired your work. So,
Thank you.
we're about to wrap up here, Kelton, but, one last question for you. What advice can you offer our listeners today, either about writing or poetry?
Well, for everybody out there that just, you want to get into writing, and doesn't necessarily have to be poetry, just write in general, like, always to remember to write and to address and express the matters of your own heart and mind. Do it for you. Do it to reach your own happiness and to satisfy your own pleasures. Writing actually brings a great stress relief and wonders to the world. Be able to tap into your own creativity. Like we always have this idea that when we become an adult, your imagination, has to pretty much die down with your childhood, but that's not exactly the case at all. You could be 30 years old, still with a big imagination. Put it in your writing. Put it in creative writing. And just don't be afraid to let that inner kid come out in your writing.